Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 27. Money is spent when it is earned. Liao's Hifa was rendered speechless and only said after a long time, "Haha, young people are good talkers. I can't win an argument with you." He still kept his words and didn't tear up the agreement. Qin Mian made a lot of money that he was in a good mood and didn't care about being treated coldly. "We still have something to do, so we are going. Manager Liao, we'll be on our way." Liao's Hifa was not in the mood to say more and waved his hands perfunctorily. He took the blueprint and asked the assistant to hold the noodle maker before he walked quickly into the workshop at the back of the shop. Qin Mian walked out of the door and looked back. He pulled Lei Tie and walked away quickly. After walking far enough, he looked behind him and his eyes turned left and right as he secretly looked at the passers-by. He pulled back his gaze only when he didn't find anything suspicious. "What?" Lei Tie also turned around and didn't find anything unusual. Qin Mian whispered, "Nothing. I was just thinking that I made so much money from that man and he might be unreconciled that he might send someone to follow us secretly to rob the money back when there was no one around." He hugged the heavy pouch in his hand and couldn't help but look back. However, an able-bodied man who had been on the same road with them was puzzled and looked at him suspiciously. There was a chuckle nearby. Qin Mian was stunned as he thought he had heard it wrong. He stood in the middle of the street, staring at Lei Tie with an uncomprehending expression on his face. Lei Tie actually laughed and also laughed out loud. Lei Tie seemed to be surprised by the fact that he had laughed. His upturned lips immediately returned to their usual position. He took away the money pouch, then he put it in his bosom and pulled Qin Mian to move forward. Without looking at him, he lightly said, "Don't be scared." When Qin Mian returned to his senses, he felt quite regretful. Couldn't Lai Tai laugh for 2 seconds at most? Although the man was handsome, his face didn't have any expression and was also tongue-tied. Just now when he laughed, he looked quite eye-catching. But then Qin Mian himself also didn't look bad in his other life. However, Lei Tie's words of "don't be scared" really appeased him. He relaxed and didn't notice that Lei Tie was still holding his wrist. "What do you want to buy?" Lei Tie asked. When it came to how to spend money, Qin Mian was excited and looked at Lei Tie with bright eyes. "I want to build the house first. Will it be done in time for the new year?" At this time, he suddenly remembered that he had not visited the site of their house. Lei Tie didn't even mention where was it. Lei Tie nodded, after the busy season. His wife was so capable, shouldn't he want to do something about it? Although the paddy had been harvested, the next step was to cultivate the field and prepare to plant winter wheat. Only after the wheat was planted would the busy season be considered as over. However, Qin Mian still could wait 10 days to half a month. Roughly, how much would it cost? For 3 rooms, 12 tael will suffice. Lei Tie answered without even thinking about it. 12 tael wasn't much in consideration of what they had. Qin Mian heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "We can't buy the cart for the time being, but we can buy a calf to use for ploughing." "How much is it?" Lei Tie shook his head, "We should have enough." Qin Mian was not surprised. Lei Tie had just come back and most probably, he didn't know the current market. The two of them inquired about it and after some time, went directly to the place where livestock were sold. Because those animals produced excrement everywhere and the smell was bad, a special place had been designated in the town for them. In fact, it's an open space on the edge of the town. People who bought and sold cattle, sheep, pigs, donkeys, and mules all came here. Over time, this place had become a small livestock trading market. When the duo got to the vicinity, a burst of odor assailed their nostrils. They glanced around carelessly. The ground was full of manure. The sounds of pigs, cows, and sheep were mixed together. It was very lively. Those sellers were used to this kind of environment. They sat by the wall and looked uninterested as they waited for buyers. "Should we get a male or a female ox?" Qin Mian asked. LIAN answered, you decide. Hearing these words again, Qin Mian felt helpless while thinking that if he really decided everything at home, he didn't know whether LIAN really didn't care. Then buy a male ox, he said while looking left and right. A little donkey kicked the ground anxiously and suddenly took 2 steps back. Qin Mian hurriedly flashed to the side. Its master was an old man in his 50s, smiled at him sheepishly and pulled the rope in his hand, dragging the donkey aside. Qin Mian smiled back to express that he didn't mind. He saw several people selling cattle in front of him. After he shopped around and compared prices, he finally saw a 2-year-old young ox. It's a water ox. Its horn was thick and flat, and its 2 big eyes were as clear as glass. It should have been washed by the owner specially since its hair was jet black and clean, which made people like it. Qin Mian saw such a beautiful water ox for the first time. After asking the broker in charge of livestock sales in the market to see it and determined the ox had no health and convenience problems, Qin Mian spent 6 tael of silver to buy it and gave the broker another 100 yuan. LIAN really let him decide as he said. He had no objection during that time and merely looked at him lightly with those dark and deep eyes. Occasionally when those eyes met his, Qin Mian's heartbeat became unstable. But his attention soon shifted because he had a lot to buy. Making LIAN led the young ox, he went to buy some vegetable seeds, 2 jin of sugar and 2 jin of streaky pork. Of course, he didn't forget to buy the promised snacks. Finally, he went to the cloth shop and picked up their new clothes, and then led the young ox home. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 28. Pamper. Qin Mian was in a particularly good mood because he had made money. Although LIAN was still expressionless, his relaxed pace showed that he was also in a good mood. He carried all the things they bought on his back while Qin Mian led a water ox and stroked its back and neck from time to time as he walked. The ox was docile in character as it didn't mind his harassment. It moved forward slowly and flicked its tail from time to time, very leisurely. LIAN looked on in puzzlement. Qin Mian smiled at him, continued to touch the water ox and spoke with irrefutable words, I'm cultivating feelings with it. When I get familiar with it, I can ride it like a horse to town. Just now, he didn't see horses in the market. After all, they were in backward ancient times. Selling of horses were probably regulated by the imperial court as military supplies. LIAN shook his head and threw a glance at the ox thoughtfully. Without saying anything, his eyes fell on the smiling side of his wife's face. It always seemed that it took less time to return. It didn't take long for them to get to the foot of the mountain and see the village below. When the sweat-soaked farmers saw Qin Mian coming back with an ox while he talked with LIAN, they were very surprised. They talked in low voices as their eyes mostly fell on the buffalo with both admiration and jealousy. Hey, are that LIAN and his wife? Zhang Ji straightened up and wiped her sweat. She had inadvertently glanced at the way out of the village and saw the two. Surprised, she patted her husband. The sickle in Zhang Dashuan's hand was askew and he almost cut his own hand. He stared helplessly at his wife before he looked at the road and was stunned. Yes. Zhang Ji said in a low voice, such a big ox is not cheap. It seems that LIAN really hid the money before parting ways with his family. Zhang Dashuan got upset. He frowned and scolded, stop minding other people's family business. Zhang Ji knew what he was worried about and didn't take offense. She looked at him with a smile and said in a warm voice, all right, don't I know what you are worried about? Let's just talk about it in private. Don't worry, I won't gossip. Zhang Dashuan breathed a sigh of relief and looked at his wife with gentler eyes. He lowered his head and continued to cut the grain. How could he not know that his wife was not a loose-mouthed person? He merely reminded her a little more so as to avoid quarrel. I'm afraid that the news will soon reach the old Lei family's house and the young couple won't be in peace again. Zhang Ji shook her head and sympathized with Qin Mian and LIAN. Over there, Qin Mian and Lei Tie walked into the village, and very soon someone came up from the field to greet to them. Lei Tie, have you added a big ox to your family? This ox is bought well, it looks strong. Aunt Xiaolin seemed to be in admiration as she sized up the buffalo and praised. Her clear voice carried a hint of swiftness. Lei Tie nodded, Aunt. Interpersonal communication had to be relied on Qin Mian. He immediately showed an intimate but not too enthusiastic smile to the woman. Tiger and I are not familiar with oxes and we are unable to perceive the good or the bad. Before that, we were worried about whether we would buy a bad one. It's relieving to hear that from Aunt. He seamlessly flattered Aunt Xiaolin. When Aunt Xiaolin heard that, she felt more comfortable with the only male wife in the village, which gave her a good impression. She said with a smile, Don't worry, this ox is fine. My parents have 2 oxen, I'm familiar with them. Whether this ox is healthy, it first depends on whether it's spirited, and this one looks spirited enough. Second, it depends on the hair whether it is neat and glossy. Third, it depends on the pace. If it's stable and have a steady gait, then it's definitely a healthy one. The easiest way is to look at its appetite. It's no problem if it can eat heartily. Qin Mian nodded and admiringly said, Aunt knows so much. Before, we saw it eating fresh straw, so we decided to buy it. At this time, he vaguely understood why the aunt, whom he had not known before, came to show up suddenly. She mentioned that there were oxen in her parents' family, which was to say that her own family did not have them. If she had a good relationship with them, it would be easy to ask if she wanted to borrow it. He patted the back of the ox and said, Thank you for telling us so much. If you want to use it later, just say it. Aunt Xiaolin was really happy now. She secretly praised this brother's intelligence. She laughed and was all the more satisfied the more she looked at Qin Mian. Then, Aunt thanks you in advance. You're still tired after you've gone so far. Aunt won't delay you. Aunt, we'll be on our way. They continued to walk into the village and a few villagers warmly greeted them. Qin Mian responded with the same courtesy. Although he knew that they did that only for the ox, he didn't dislike them. As long as the villagers was no longer pointing out to him and Lei Tie, which spoiled people's mood for no reason, it's no big deal to lend them the ox. When they got home, Xiao Hu was sitting lazily on the back of his chair and waved his bamboo pole from time to time. What's unexpected was that there was another boy of the same age next to him, whose clothes were still stained with straw scraps. He squatted on the ground and played with worms. He kept shouting something as he played enthusiastically. He seemed lively. Xiao Hu! Xiao Hu immediately jumped down and smiled at Qin Mian. His eyes unconsciously looked at Lei Tie's basket, Uncle Lei, Uncle Qin. The other little boy also stood up and watched Qin Mian and Lei Tie with a bit of blush, eyes moved about, and then he also called out, Uncle Lei, Uncle Qin. His voice was quite loud. How could Qin Mian not perceive the little demon's mind? He secretly thought it was funny, but he didn't tease them. He took out 2 packages of snacks from the basket. At that time in the snack shop, he had only bought 1 package for Xiao Hu, but then Lei Tie took another package for him, so they bought 2 packages. He handed one of the packages to Xiao Hu, opened the other package where there were 8 colored pastries in it, and took out 4 for the other little boy. You boys have worked hard. Thank you, Uncle Qin. Xiao Hu happily held the snacks in both hands. The little boy understood why he got less, so he just smiled, Thank you, Uncle Qin. Unable to hold himself back, he picked up a piece and took a big bite, chewing quickly. Qin Mian saw it and sighed with emotion. He had tasted it before, and compared with modern ones, it was far worse in appearance, color, and taste. There is a business opportunity here. Go play. The 2 little demons ran with delight. This time, there was something to show off to their companions. Uncle Qin, if there is anything, I can help you again. Xiao Hu waved as he ran away. This is becoming aware of the benefits of something. Qin Mian laughed in spite of himself. LIAN waited for him to open the door. Qin Mian's left hand hugged his chest and reached out his right hand to LIAN as he looked on with a happy smile and without speaking. LIAN was taken aback before he took out the money pouch and handed it to him. Qin Mian looked at him approvingly with eyes that said, the young man was promising and worthy to be taught before he took the money pouch and fished out the key to open the door. LIAN shook his head, afraid that he didn't find his own eyes laden with pampering. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 29. LIAN's regard. LIAN put down the basket, took the tether from Qin Mian's hand and tied it to a tree. Then, he brought a bundle of fresh paddy straw. The water ox chewed the straws with its head down as it wagged its tail. It seemed very happy. Qin Mian didn't leave. He bent down and fed it a handful of straw. He turned to LIAN and said, you should get close to it too, lest it won't listen to you when you are plowing the field. LIAN was stumped for words. He really picked up a handful of straw and fed it to the ox. He raised his big palm and stroked the ox's head stiffly. Qin Mian was stunned, then he couldn't help laughing, ha ha ha, he was just teasing LIAN, but the man took it seriously. An ox's nature was usually docile and would not cause trouble unless it was deliberately provoked. LIAN vaguely understood that he was teased. He was still calm as before and only took a profound glance at Qin Mian. Instead of leaving, he took a handful of straw and continued to feed the ox. Qin Mian took a glance at him with a smile and vaguely felt that it's awkward for them to feed the young ox together, but somehow, he didn't want to find an excuse to go away but watched the ox eat the straw in LIAN's hand and also fed it with his own hand. Running in a hurry, Lei Chuntao saw from a distance that their shoulders seemed to be next to each other but also not, and the view of their backs looked very harmonious. She stopped and a look of being deeply moved floated on her pretty face. This scene appeared to give people comfort that no one would want to disturb it. In fact, it seemed that there was nothing unusual with her eldest brother and eldest sister-in-law living together. She hesitated for a moment before she continued to run over and deliberately raised her voice when she greeted, "Degur, eldest sister-in-law." The small bell on her purple thin silk skirt rung along and it sounded very pleasant. Qin Mian immediately threw away the straw. LIAN's body was stiff for a moment, his hands uneasily loosened before he turned around and shot a glance at Lei Chuntao. "Mei, why are you here?" Qin Mian patted off the debris on his hand and asked politely. These days, he had already learned that girls who had yet to marry were awfully refrained from going out or walked too close to men. It could be seen that this was indeed a time when feudal proprieties were relatively strict. Although Lei Chuntao was his nominal sister-in-law, he still should pay attention to proper etiquette. Lei Chuntao thought that she had disturbed the couple and felt embarrassed. "Nothing, I just want to tell you that someone may come to trouble you." The more she talked, the redder her face became. It's embarrassing to think of the harsh words that her mother, her ergur, second sister-in-law and third sister-in-law had said. But they were her mother and her second brother. She was the youngest, so how could she talk behind her elder's back? However, if she did not warn her eldest brother and eldest sister-in-law, she would felt uneasy. She had no choice but to rush over. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head and ran away again. Qin Mian and LIAN knew what she meant by someone. LIAN subconsciously looked at Qin Mian and discovered that his wife was not bothered. Qin Mian either didn't care about it or he had some countermeasures. In that case, he also would not take it seriously. Looking back at the ox, he felt a slight regret. Qin Mian remembered an important thing: where is the lot for our house that you bought? LIAN breathed a sigh of relief. He thought Qin Mian was completely unconcerned about it. "Lock the door." Qin Mian locked the door and looked at the ox. He was afraid that someone would steal it, but then he thought of how simple the people in the countryside were and that the farmland was not far away from many people in the field. So, he put his worry to rest and followed LIAN into the village. It didn't take them long to get to the west end of the village. The house planning of Green Mountain Village could passably be considered as standard, basically in a row. LIAN bought a 3-room space area of land in the west of the village. There were still marks on the ground that the village chief measured last time. There were neighbors in the east, open space in the west, and a grove not far away. Mian turned around and thought that the position was really good. The old Lei family's house was in the east of the village. To live in the west of the village, they could avoid them and a few of the narrow-minded people around. Secondly, there was a vacant lot on the west side and an empty lot on the north side. It would be easy to expand in the future. He felt that LIAN was a man with vision. It's a nice place. Mian said to LIAN with a satisfied look. LIAN nodded. I'll buy the materials after plowing the field. Mian said, Zhongxiang should know more about it. You can ask him about the market price of bricks, tiles and the likes. Don't get cheated. A married woman's head stuck out behind the wall. After discovering that Mian noticed her, she squeezed out a smile before her head quickly withdrawn. Mian assumed that she was their neighbor. There was no need to make a contact with the neighbors at the moment and it would be put off until the house was built. The couple strolled back home. LIAN took a saw and a bow set with a basket carried on his back. Wife, I'm going to the mountain. He left without saying anything more. Mian didn't ask but casually said, be careful, as he fetched a coarse-toothed wooden rake to turn over the paddy grain for drying. Therefore, Mian didn't notice that LIAN's body shook when he heard these 2 words. He took a look back at Mian before he left. The expression in his eyes was deeper than before. Mian went to the vegetable garden to pick the vegetables he wanted to eat in the evening. When he got home, he didn't see that someone was coming to find fault, which was quite unexpected. Without Du Shi, Zhao Shi, and the others who came to be an irksome presence, he readily took the opportunity to be at ease. He turned around and saw hawthorn and apple on the ground. He cut down bamboo and made dozens of long and thin bamboo sticks. He then grabbed a handful of hawthorn, cleaned them, cut in 2, and dug out the core before closing the 2 halves. After that, he fetched a few apples from the magical space, washed them and cut them into dices. He wanted to make tanghulu. So many hawthorn and wild apples couldn't be wasted, right? After washing the bamboo sticks clean, he skewed the hawthorn and apple, 2 hawthorns and a dice of apple for each skewer. After he did a series of 10 skewers, he lighted a fire and heated water. After the water was boiled, he added a proper amount of white sugar, boiled it slowly over medium heat, and constantly stirred it with a spatula. When sugar liquid started to foam, he put the tanghulus in it and rolled them quickly. Then, he put them onto an oiled plate. After cooling for about 10 minutes, the skewers of tanghulu were ready, with bright color and attractive aroma. Hearing the banging from outside, he picked up the plate and walked out quickly. Sure enough, it was LIAN who came back and was looking at the wooden block and the cut-off bamboo. At his feet laid 2 logs. Mian grabbed a tanghulu and took a bite. He nodded and handed out the plate to LIAN. Taste it. LIAN frowned. He hadn't seen something like this before, but it didn't look like an adult man's type of food. His wife carried the plate and did not withdraw his hand. He picked up one and bit it reluctantly. It's not poisonous. Mian joked, don't worry, you won't be forced to finish all this. I didn't see anyone selling this in the town before. I think this is a new thing. It tastes good, sour and sweet. How about making it to sell? LIAN was frowning all the time. It really looked like he was taking poison. His frown only eased up when he bit the apple. Mian saw clearly that LIAN swallowed the hawthorns directly, but he would chew the apple before swallowing it. What are these logs for? Actually, Mian didn't like sweets either and he was just trying something new today. They're useful. LIAN replied vaguely. I need to make another trip. Qin Mian saw that it was getting late. Don't be too late. LIAN quickly finished the tanghulu, took out a pheasant in the basket and left in a hurry. After Qin Mian cleaned the pheasant, he made more tanghulu, but he didn't use the apple in the space anymore. It was too troublesome to remove the core and so he omitted the process. Lastly, he counted them and found that there were more than 60 altogether. LIAN had already come back and was sawing the log into planks. Qin Mian made a firm stand out of bound paddy straws and stuck the tanghulu on it one by one. LIAN looked over at it for a few times, as if thinking of something. After that, Qin Mian began to cook dinner. A big wok of stewed fowl with chestnut, the strong aroma was captivating. When it was done, he ladled up a large bowl and handed it over to LIAN. Send it over there. LIAN was dumbfounded. Qin Mian knew what he was uncertain about and said with a smile, "We still have to live in the village, so we can't really become enemies with the people over there. It's fine to tolerate them on the surface, lest we become the topic of people's gossip." With that, he winked at LIAN. At this moment, the busy people in the field are going home one after another. You pick the place where there are many people to walk. LIAN's eyes flashed with a ghost of a smile and he touched Qin Mian's head. Qin Mian rubbed his nose and turned into the kitchen. Cough, I have other dishes to make. The 100 yuan which needed to be given to the old house over there for this month was already prepared at an earlier time. But Du Shi was a capricious mule-headed person. Even if this dish diffused the trouble this time, there would be another. The 100 yuan should be kept for the next time to keep her mouth shut. Sure enough, until the next morning, no one from the old house over there came looking for trouble. Qin Mian got up at dawn but LIAN was no longer in bed. When he saw that the ox was gone, he was shocked. He ran back into the house and upon seeing that the ploughing tools were not there, he was relieved. As he was about to enter the room, he caught a glimpse of several planks that had been nailed together in the shape of a handcart model placed against the wall. He was surprised and pleased. After breakfast, LIAN didn't come back. Qin Mian took the meal and delivered it to him. As expected, LIAN was in the middle of urging the ox to plough the field. The ox was really docile, pulling the plough forward without any trouble. Half of a mu area had been ploughed. Already. Tie Gurgur, have a meal. LIAN tied the ox's rope to a wood post before he came over. I see some planks outside the room. Are you going to make a cart? Qin Mian asked. I'll buy you a new one when I have money. LIAN took a quick look at him as he said in a muffled voice and took over the bowl. Qin Mian couldn't help but laugh out loud. He didn't know what he was feeling at that time. He changed the topic, I'm going to sell the tanghulu in town later. End chapter. Minwei Qinan. Chapter 30. First couple fight. Wait for me, I'll send you off. LIAN ate with absorbed concentration. No need, I can. I'll send you. LIAN didn't back down. Qin Mian was thinking that it was quite far from the village to the town and it was a busy season, there would be no one on the road. In case of wild animals or someone robbing in the middle of the road, it would be really unsafe. Might as well. By the way, where are our vegetable fields? It's going to be cold soon. If we don't grow vegetables, we won't have vegetables to eat in winter. LIAN thought about it before saying, the field was divided into half a mu. Qin Mian said, we have too few fields. There's no harm to grow vegetables in the other half a mu field. If we have enough money, we can buy more fields. And his little wife was indeed a person with vision, LIAN had no objection. After thinking about it, he spoke, no one eats sweets early in the morning. Qin Mian suddenly realized that. Who would indeed buy sweets in the morning? It's really something he had ignored. When LIAN finished eating, Qin Mian took the bowl and went home. When he passed the grain sunning ground, Xiao Hu and the little boy from yesterday impatiently looked at him. He suddenly lost his smile and beckoned them. Two little demons came running over excitedly. Uncle Qin. I only need 2 people here. Qin Mian was afraid that Xiao Hu would call all the children in the village. The 2 little demons, who dared to do mischief, understood his meaning and tapped their small chests to pledge, Uncle Qin can rest assured. If there are more people coming, our share will be less. Qin Mian came to know that the other little demon called Go Dan was Xiao Hu's older male cousin on his father's side. They enjoyed playing together. I'll call you guys over when I have to leave. When Lei Tie was done with plowing and came home, it was about 10 o'clock. Qin Mian locked the door, wrapped the Tang Hulo stand with a clean cloth and let Lei Tie carry it first to keep it away from Xiao Hu and Go Dan. It's not that he was stingy and didn't want to give them the Tang Hulu, but he still counted on to earn a small amount from the Tang Hulu. The children couldn't hide it, and if the information was leaked, it was far from good. Assuming that Lei Tie had left the village, Qin Mian went to the grain sunning ground to call Xiao Hu and Go Dan over and tell them to turn over the paddy grain to dry it for a while before he left in a hurry. Both sides of the road out of the village were planted with poplar and locust trees. It was still yet the time for trees to lose leaves, so the cascading leaves blocked one's view. Qin Mian ran a few steps before he saw Lei Tie looking back from 100 meters away. Where is eldest sister-in-law in a hurry to go? Carrying a water jar, Zhao Shi walked over quickly and followed his gaze. Isn't that eldest brother? Are you guys going to town again? You just got a big ox yesterday. What do you want buy in town today? Your lives are getting prosperous, ah. Qin Mian ignored her and quickened his pace. Zhao Shi's voice was so kind that it made one's back chilled. Eldest sister-in-law, I'm not telling you off. But if there's any way to get money, take more care of the parents. Otherwise. Qin Mian interrupted her, Erlang's wife, I have something else to do. I'll go first. Hey. Upon seeing that he was evading her so fast, Zhao Shi became more unsure of her guess. She gnashed her teeth, stamped her foot and swung her willow hips to turn back to walk home. Qin Mian caught up with Lei Tie and wiped his sweat. Lei Tie threw an eye at the back and said lightly, don't mind it. Qin Mian waved his hand. For those people in the old house, he had nothing to say and simply gave a cold treatment. When they got to the town, they went straight to the most prosperous street. On both sides of the street were stalls selling all kinds of things, pancakes, cloth, umbrellas, rouge and gauche, vegetables. The shouting of the hawkers sounded from time to time, with some of the tones were lethargic and drowsy, while some were high-pitched and sonorous like singing, making people laugh. The ordinary people who strolled around the streets, the merchants who traveled in a hurry, and even the ruffians who did nothing at all, picked and chose in front of the small stalls, which was interesting. Qin Mian found a place to set stand, but his enthusiasm suddenly faded in half. Who was going to hawk? He looked at Lei Tie with ardent gaze. Lei Tie took a quick look at him and put the Tang Hulo stand on the ground without squinting or squeaking. Qin Mian walked closer to him, patted him on the shoulder and looked at him with a winsome smile. Tiger, you'll have to shout delicious Tang Hulu, 2-1 for a skewer. Lei Tie still did not utter a sound or a word. Soft approach did not succeed. Qin Mian used force. If you don't shout out, you can't eat lunch. Lei Tie's mouth opened wide and suddenly shoved the stand into Qin Mian's hand. I'll ask Butcher Zhang if he needs praise. After saying that, he walked away quickly without giving Qin Mian a chance to respond. Hey, you! Qin Mian was speechless. Seeing that Lei Tie really didn't return, he became angry and his heart felt empty and cold. This town was completely strange to him, and when he came here before, he didn't feel anything notable. Today, there was an inexplicable sense of loneliness in his heart and a feeling of uneasiness surged from its bottom. It was as if he was the only one in such a big world. People passing by all looked at the red Tang Hulu curiously. They wanted to come and have a look, but all he did was only smile. Did he really have to hawk? At this time, he regretted the idea of selling tanghulu. Why didn't he expect such a problem? Little brother, what are you selling? An old lady with grey hair cheerfully asked. Mian said, this is tanghulu. It's sour and sweet, suitable for children. Does aunt want to give a skewer to your family member? Tanghulu? Is it delicious? The old lady asked with a strange look in her eyes. Mian saw that she was plainly dressed and there were several patches on her clothes. She was probably not a generous person. But anyone dropping in was a customer. He took a skewer with a smile on his face and handed it over to her. How about tasting it first and buy it if you think it's delicious? A few other people around also showed some interest. Who wouldn't want free food? Mian simply took 3 more skewers and handed them to several envious children. Have a taste, the children will definitely like it too. When for a skewer. The old lady took a bite and frowned at the sourness, but she was very kind and still smiled. This old lady can't eat it, but a little child will definitely like it. After saying that, she fished out a few coppers from her bosom and took 4 to hand over to Mian. Give 2 skewers. The business was finally opened. Mian breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly took 2 skewers to exchange with the money. Mother, it's delicious. I want another one. A little girl about 6 years old, tugged at her mother's sleeve as her eyes stared at the bright red fruit on the stand, shining brightly. It's very sour, how can it be eaten? The woman glanced at Mian secretly and pulled the little girl away with some embarrassment. She said that but the skewer of bitten tanghulu in her hand was not thrown away. Mian felt helpless. He felt that today was a blunder. Looking in the direction where LIAN left, he still couldn't see the man's figure, so he harbored even more bellyful of fire. This aroused his fighting spirit instead. Carrying the stand, he shouted, take a look, come visit, sweet and sour tanghulu, 2 wen a skewer. Take a look, come visit. He walked half the street and also shouted for half the street but only sold 6 skewers. Mian realized the reason why there were only few people who dared to try his food. It's because this is something new and not known to them. But he really couldn't believe that as an open-minded modern man, he had let himself turned into a conservative ancient man. Instead of hawking, he went back to the original place and handed 2 skewers to the woman in her 50s who sold cloth on the left and the young man who sold vegetables on the right. If you don't mind, try it. People who did business were basically adept at dealing things for others' interest. The 2 people generously thanked him after receiving the skewers. Mian took a skewer to eat himself and shouted loudly, 2 wen for a skewer of delicious tanghulu, 2 wen for a skewer of delicious tanghulu. I have to say, the woman said with a smile, taking a small bite. It's a little sour but it's just perfect. It's delicious. The young man also bit a hawthorn from the bamboo stick. I don't like it very much but my wife likes to eat sour and sweet snacks. Little brother, give me 5 skewers. This method actually worked. The people who passed by saw all 3 of them eating and even chatting, they became interested. It's worth spending 2 wen to buy a skewer and try something new. Soon Mian sold more than 10 skewers. A girl less than 10 years old came from the opposite rice shop and bought 5 skewers. Mian generously gave her an extra. The little girl looked at him with a smile and ran back happily. After a moment, a little girl about her age was dragged from the deli food shop next door and also bought 5 skewers. Mian also gave her an extra. After more than an hour, the tanghulu was sold out. Mian felt a sense of achievement. Looking at the declining sun, he unhurriedly found a small restaurant while carrying the stand on his shoulder. He ordered a scrambled egg with tomato, a fried meat with green pepper and a bowl of rice, and ate by himself. As for LIAN, who cares? He only took 2 bites and a shadow fell in front of him. Mian looked up and saw that LIAN had come out of nowhere and automatically sat beside him. A waiter ran over immediately. Are you two together? What else do you need? Qin Mian ate without saying anything. Lei Tie didn't speak. The waiter looked at Qin Mian suspiciously and then at Lei Tie. Both of them kept silent, so the waiter had to walk away helplessly. Qin Mian raised his eyelids and looked at Lei Tie defiantly. Lei Tie's expression was indifferent as before. The dishes in this shop were well fried. Qin Mian ignored him and ate with big bites. Wife, I'm hungry. Qin Mian was shocked and immediately covered his mouth. Shut up. With his mouth being covered by the other person, Lei Tie still didn't move. He blinked and because Qin Mian's hand blocked the area under his nose, his dark eyes turned more and more deep. Qin Mian's heart was shaken by his blink. He turned to look at other customers in the shop. Seeing that no one heard Lei Tie's words, he took a sigh of relief and gave Lei Tie a fierce look. Lei Tie backed away from his hand and said, I'm hungry, wi. Waiter, another bowl of rice. Qin Mian looked at him with eyes like dagger. The waiter almost dropped the dish he was carrying in his hands by Qin Mian's roar. End chapter. Minwei Qinan. Chapter 31. Who admit defeat? When the meal was served, Lei Tie shut up. Qin Mian was very angry but he ordered 2 more dishes and a bowl of rice. After eating, he paid before leaving. Lei Tie followed like a mute person and took over the stand in his hand. Qin Mian didn't refuse but didn't say a word to him all the way. Lei Tie was about to speak, but said nothing in the end. His eyes fell on the thin back of the young man. Recently, they were eating good food, so the wife must have been raised well. While his body was still thin, he had more meat on his face than before. His dry hair was now soft and black which was tied into a high ponytail that swayed as if it was afraid that people wouldn't know its master had a hot temper. Thinking of the young lad's angry expression, the corner of Lei Tie's lips slightly cocked but it disappeared in a flash. He was not used to the lad being uncommunicative. However, if he was to coax him, he really didn't know how to. As Qin Mian walked, he listened to the movement behind him but he didn't hear anything. He wasn't really angry but it was true that he was dejected and there was a part at the bottom of his heart that was unreconciled. He actually wanted to see who would give in first. Thinking of this, he relaxed a lot and his footsteps became more brisk. Whether he walked fast or slow, Lei Tie always kept the same distance with him. Passers-by on the street noticed that the two, one at the front and the other at the back. It looked as if they were fighting, and they amusedly pointed fingers at the couple. As if unaware of it, Qin Mian bought 2 packages of snacks and 2 gin of sugar before leaving the town. No words were uttered along the way. When they got home, Qin Mian gave the snacks to Xiaohu and Go Dan and went out with the basket on his back. Where to? Lei Tie asked. Qin Mian looked at him with a smile, but didn't speak. He went to the back of the mountain. Lei Tie was taken aback. He fetched the bow set, locked the door and quickly followed. Xiaohu and Go Dan sensed the strange atmosphere and looked at each other inexplicably before eating the snacks with relish. Qin Mian walked very fast but when he got into the mountain, his strong will deflated. He looked around and couldn't make up his mind. He planned to pick more hawthorn and wild apple but he didn't know where the hawthorn and apple trees were. What are you looking for? Lei Tie asked again with a flat voice without a thread of emotion. Qin Mian opened his mouth but closed it immediately. He took out a hawthorn fruit and an apple from the basket and waved them at Lei Tie. At this moment, Lei Tie finally understood that his wife was acting in a fit of pique with him. It was a bit funny but he was never a person who easily showed emotions. Nothing could be seen on his face, only a pair of deep and frightening black eyes covered with a layer of softness. He took Qin Mian's hand, looked around and walked in one direction without hesitation. Led by the other man, Qin Mian looked around leisurely but he still didn't speak. After picking a lot of hawthorn and wild apple, the basket was full. But of course, the basket was on Lei Tie's back. Once at home, Qin Mian sent Xiaohu and Go Dan away. Then, he ladled up water into a basin to wash the hawthorns and apples. LIAN went to take a look in the water vat before he went out with an empty bucket. Upon seeing him go far, Qin Mian spat out a mouthful of breath. I almost suffocated. How can that guy manage not to say even 3 sentences a day? It was really a chore for a talkative person like him to refrain from talking for such a long time. In a distance, LIAN turned his head and looked back. Qin Mian didn't notice it as he was cleaning the fruits quickly and neatly. Today's tanghulu had sold for more than 100 wen, almost equivalent to more than 100 yuan in modern times. It didn't sound like much, but in this era, it was not a small amount and it was enough to buy many things. However, selling tanghulu was not a long-term thing after all. If he wanted to get rich, he had to think of other ways. As he was thinking, he heard the sound of pouring water. After LIAN filled the water vat, he brought in the planks and found the carpentry tools. He moved a wooden log and sat at the door in the central room. His head lowered as he hammered with a look of concentration. Qin Mian gave him a furtive look. After washing the fruits, he put them in a sieve and let them dry under the sun, mainly to drain the water. Then he took out yesterday's cut-off bamboos and continued to make bamboo sticks. Upon seeing this, LIAN took over Qin Mian's work without saying a word. It was exactly what Qin Mian wanted, as it was easy to get his hand scratched if the bamboo stick was not smooth. Yet, he was not idle. He turned over the grain for drying, led the ox to the pond to drink water before tying it back, and dragged over a bundle of straw. When the fruits had drained, he made more than 60 skewers of tanghulu. After dinner was done, he didn't call LIAN but sat down and ate. Minced meat with eggplant was very appetizing. LIAN was thinking about how to nail the planks more firmly when he heard the clinking sound of chopsticks colliding with dishware, and only then found out that the wife had already started eating. After a brief pause, he silently washed his hands and came to eat. Qin Mian snickered and almost choked on food. LIAN was steady and stable, clipped a dish to eat, neither tense nor slow, and glanced at Qin Mian with an undiscernible look. Qin Mian's stone face made out a look of indifference. He didn't say a word to LIAN until he went to bed at night. As for the matter of squeezing into LIAN's embrace after sleeping, he ignored it breezily. The next day was just like yesterday. LIAN went to plough the land till about 10 o'clock before they set out for the town. When Qin Mian got to the previous place, he greeted the owners of the left and right stalls. Qin Mian was about to start hawking when LIAN suddenly stood in front of the stand, and without looking at him, LIAN brusquely said to the passers-by, "Delicious tanghulu, 2 wen for a skewer." An elderly woman who was going to come over with her little granddaughter was frightened by his expressionless face, and she stepped back while looking at him hesitantly. Stunned, Qin Mian couldn't help laughing and quickly lowered his head. Puff. LIAN turned to look at him with his dull gaze full of emotions that were difficult to discern. Qin Mian couldn't say what it was, but it put him in a good mood. He didn't intend to embarrass LIAN anymore, but he couldn't help laughing a few times. Ha ha ha. Stop, I'll do it. Fact was, he was trying to test LIAN with this quarrel. Qin Mian was satisfied with the result. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 32. Farming. Delicious tanghulu, 2 wen for a skewer. Qin Mian shouted loudly. LIAN stood beside him, never leaving his side. This time, the tanghulu was sold faster than yesterday. In a short time, only 2 skewers remained, which were left for Xiaohu and Go Dan. Qin Mian happily weighed the money pouch and smiled at LIAN as he said, "Do we need to buy anything?" LIAN immediately realized that his wife's attitude towards him had improved. He had become more casual and intimate, to him to be precise. "No. Let's go and get something to cook. It's still early, so let's not have lunch in the town. The food in that restaurant is not as delicious as I made it. Do you have anything you want to eat? Mian asked, thinking about what he himself wanted to eat. LIAN was about to answer no, but seeing how Mian was in a good mood, he changed his mind. Fish. Sure, let's go buy fish. Mian felt very refreshed. The both of them consumed a large amount of food, so Mian simply bought 2 fish of about 2 jin. There were condiments of onion, ginger, and garlic at home, no need to buy any more. The tube bone was cheap and he bought 2 jin to simmer, which was good for one's health. When they were about to leave the town, they saw an old man selling straw hats on the road. Buy 2 hats. LIAN said. Mian spent 4 wen to buy 2 hats, one for each of them to dispel the scorching sensation on the top of their heads. On the way back, they chatted as they walked. The dry land has been half plowed, is it possible to plant vegetables now? The work in the farm field couldn't be left behind, Mian was very concerned. LIAN replied, NN. I will plant the vegetables, you plant wheat. Mian said. LIAN took a look at him. Can you? It's not hard. Mian said calmly, but I don't know if I still remember, after all, he hadn't done farm work for many years. LIAN thought nothing of it. There were only 2 mu of land in all and he alone was too busy to manage it. When they entered the village, Xiaohu and Go Dan saw them. Xiaohu was more reserved but Go Dan jumped with joy and waved at them from far away. Mian gave each of them a skewer of tanghulu and a package of snacks. He said with a smile, you guys don't need to come here tomorrow. Thanks to both of you for these 2 days. Uncle Qin, what is this? Go Dan was more active than Xiaohu, he asked curiously as he held the tanghulu. Mian said, this is tanghulu. It's sweet. Thank you, Uncle Qin. Go Dan got both the snacks he never seen before and also pastry, he was filled with joy. Xiaohu couldn't help licking his lips. The 2 bouncingly ran away. After lunch, Mian and LIAN put on the straw hats and went to the farm field. They were going to that 1 mu of dry land. Mian planted vegetables and LIAN plowed the remaining half of the land. The vegetables planted in autumn were nothing more than pak choy, cabbage, radish, and spinach, which were the vegetable seeds Mian had bought. Mian roughly divided the plowed apart to be planted with the 4 vegetables into 4 smaller plots, 1 plot for each vegetable. End chapter.